What up, HyperChange? Welcome to another episode. Today we're going to do something a little different. I'm actually a little bit nervous. I'm going to take you under the hood of HyperChange LLC, my media startup that is my job that I run this YouTube channel with, and show you guys the KPIs, key performance indicators I look at for my own business. We're going to go through the financial statements. This is usually something I do for Patreons only. Like I've been putting out these quarterly reports to show you guys basically the startup behind the business for the Patreon supporters to just kind of say thank you and, here's the business I'm building, here's how I'm thinking about it. And instead of doing a quarterly letter this time, I wanted to mix it up and just make this video because we've actually added this new feature to HyperCharts where you can upload your own company, put in your own data. And so I've added HyperChange to HyperCharts, pretty meta. If you're unfamiliar with HyperCharts, this is a project that we launched about a year ago in partnership with Mo, who was a subscriber, really talented software engineer. And he basically built this platform and I helped him sort of, come up with the concept, which is basically to turn hundreds of pages of SEC filings, complex financial data into a really simple visual format for you to understand, is a company growing? What metrics are most important? How are those metrics trending? Just as an example, here's Apple. We can go look at revenue per segment, look in, your iPad. This is like, I always dreamt this existed, so it's so cool to see it be a reality. We can go to annual view, which products is driving Apple's growth. As you can see, iPhone is the bulk of their revenue. Let's see how their services business is doing. Everyone's talking about the growth there. Oh, wow, their growth is solid. Like just the amount of insight you can get in seconds from this chart. I think a picture is worth 1,000 words, and the same as like a chart is worth 1,000 data points. Here's the trend. As you can see, Apple's other revenue took a hit when they backed out service, Apple Watch, and then AirPods, boom, huge growth in other revenue. So there's just so much insight. I could play around with this all day. We've even added like Bitcoin, the first cryptocurrency. So you can look at the market price of Bitcoin over time, but not even just the market price. We have market capitalization, transactions per day, the hash rate of Bitcoin. So it's so much cool stuff that you can do on this platform. Lyft, I think this is you can even estimate your financials, but here's Lyft. I think this is funny. Lyft losing so much money, operating margin decreasing year over year. So we can see that Lyft is losing money instantly. What are they spending that money on? Sales, general administrative, operations. This is such a powerful tool. We can turn this into a chart. I can even download the data if I want to, because I'm a pro subscriber, which is $10 a month. I can compare this chart to another company, let's say Uber, if I want to do compare mode. So there's just so many different ways. There's the earnings calendar, which shows you when my favorite companies' earnings are coming up. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked, but I love HyperCharts, and it's for public companies. But the new thing we've been working on is for you to basically upload your own company to HyperCharts. So now let's go to the bottom, and I want to show you what this looks like. It's called Private Financials. So my company that I've created, and I can add more, is HyperChange. And this feature is, by the way, included in your pro subscription for $10 a month. And unless your company does over $1 million in revenue per year, then you're gonna have to pay $50 a month or more. But this is the new feature I've been working on. Would love to get feedback from you. But now let's just dive into the fun part and show you what's up. So this is HyperChange. This is the back end of where I input all of the data. Basically like a spreadsheet. I'm inputting all of my sales numbers and KPIs. So that they can get translated into this page. This is a public page, private.hypercharts.co/hyperchange. It's going to be public for like a week or two. I don't know how much I want to leave this up because it's very it's literally all my metrics. But you can go check it out for now. Click the link, interact with this data if you want to check it out. But anyway, without further ado, this is what it looks like. These are the KPIs that I use for my business. This is the quarterly view. The first thing I think about is the following that we have. Obviously, YouTube, HyperChange's YouTube is the biggest piece of that. That blue line right there, I can back out all these others. 66.6 thousand at the end of Q4, up from 30.3 thousand, so over 100% growth. Pretty pumped up about that. Then we have HyperClips, which is the new Clips channel that we just launched. As you can see, growth has been huge there, frankly. Shout out to Aaron, who's been running that channel, doing an awesome job. As I've been dabbling more and more into longer form content, I just thought there was a huge opportunity to chop some of it up, make a new YouTube channel. And my person who helped me with Instagram, Aaron, was like, yo, you gotta launch this Clips channel. Like he was begging me, kept bugging me to do it. And so finally I caved in, and he runs that channel, which has been an awesome idea and has seen really good traction. So that's what our numbers look like for YouTube, about 70,000 followers overall. Then of course we got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the different social networks. These are less important, and I don't post much original content here, but I do think it is interesting to track these just to see the overall following. Twitter is our second biggest non-YouTube thing. Instagram, doing okay. Then we got Facebook as well, smallest social network. Don't really care too much about our Facebook page, but we have one. So this is what I look at is I guess the most important metric. How are the followers doing? How fast is that growing for the HyperChange brand? Next thing I'm going to look at is going to be impressions. And so this is, I can even zoom out a little, but this is basically how many either views on YouTube I get or listens. And just to put it in context, the average view is like 7 minutes long or so. But anyway, so this is, and it looks kind of like a straight line up until Q4, as you can see, and then there's like a huge jump. But what's really going on here is like, it's really lumpy. Like some months are amazing. If you're a YouTuber and you make content, you'll know that, you just have a viral video that takes off. Other months you're putting out a ton of videos, but nobody cares. Nobody's watching them. They're not about Tesla. So views are less. So even though it looks even monthly, it's super lumpy. But Q4 was definitely a breakout quarter over three, even just like the main channel. We did 2.7 million views over 3 months. That's almost like over 900,000 a month, which is incredible, up from just 904,000. So the growth here of impressions on the main YouTube channel accelerated significantly in Q4. I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to keep it. Like if I can just keep 2.7 million for the next quarter or two and then keep growing, I will be pumped because this was huge and had a big impact on the financials, which I'll show you. Hyperclips doing really well. Just 2 quarters, we just launched at 61,000 views the first quarter, next quarter about 350,000 views. Anchor, this is a very, see if I back out everything, you can barely even see Anchor, but this is the podcast if you didn't know. HyperChange, due to some of you requesting it, I put it on all the podcast platforms, the audio versions of the episodes. So I haven't been doing as good of a job uploading those. That's why the growth hasn't been that strong there maybe, but about 25,000 listens per quarter. This is something that maybe going forward I hope will continue to grow, but has been kind of weak so far. But anyway, that's the impressions. So we got following and impressions, the 2 most important KPIs that I look at for my company. Then we'll go into revenue segments. So this is basically breaking down revenue by different sources. As you can see, Patreon, huge shout out to my Patreon people because they've been the backbone of the revenue of the company. Used to be over 50%, now a little bit less than 50% as YouTube has grown more rapidly, but that's huge. So YouTube, as you can see, was like a little less than 50% and then exploded in Q4 because of the views exploded. So YouTube revenue was like 17,000 up from 4,000 in Q4 a year ago. So huge growth in YouTube revenue, now become the main revenue source. And this is like the core of the business. So I'm pretty pumped about how that's growing. This is like random revenue. I published a book on Amazon, so I get like random little revenue from Kindle reading or people buying that. Then I used to do like the occasional sponsored episode, but I hate doing sponsored episodes, so I've stopped doing them. So that's why this other revenue has kind of fallen flat. I sold merch once, that was in there. But anyway, this is just random revenue that the business gets that is not YouTube or Patreon. As you can see, very minimal once we back it out. And so this is the revenue and operating income. Yes, HyperChange, big losses. We're losing money, but growing rapidly. That's just how the startup game goes. So revenue for the company, every single quarter has been record revenue. I actually took like 2 weeks off in Q3 here, so I think that hurt the growth a little. But Q4, almost 29,000 in revenue, which is huge. For me, I'm like, I didn't think that would be ever possible, but I think it could still go up from here. And that was mostly because of that huge growth in YouTube views and then continued growth in Patreon. Gross profit, if you'll see, used to be like 100%, but now has gotten a little less than revenue because I've started to invest in editors to help get clips content out for Aaron, and B, my friend Kevin, who's the creative director of HyperChange. He helps me shoot some of these longer episodes and podcasts. I've been paying him to help with the, boost the production value of some of my content. So that I put in the gross profit margin. Then we have operating income here, which is basically overall losses. And I'm not as fancy with the accounting. Like I'm not like booking capital expenditures and like, depreciating them over time, at least on this financials. This is a really simplified cash financial version just for me as a CEO, like to manage my books. I just think it's way more helpful for me to just know like cash in and out of the business. Like it doesn't help me that like, oh, I spent a bunch of money on this brand new laptop here, which was a huge expense, but I'm amortizing that over time. So it's like, no, I need to know how much cash is in the bank and how much I can spend. So anyway, I do cash accounting for this because that's just how I like to do it. And as you can see, like, I lose money. Like I basically like run the business at break even and then raise a little bit of money to when I need to invest in equipment and then spend all that money on equipment. So like in Q4 2017, you'll see it was like business actually made money in Q3, but I wasn't like paying myself or there was no expenses. In Q4, I put in $2,000 and was like, all right, I'm basically about to spend $2,000 after revenue on a bunch of new equipment. And so I did that. And then I wasn't taking a salary this whole time. I was just living off my savings. I went full time in like Q1 2017 or Q2. But then as you can see, like it was break even because I didn't have any more money. So I just ran the business at break even. And then here I decided to raise, I think it was like $30,000 to invest in more equipment, be able to pay myself a salary. So I raised like a tiny amount of money from 2 angel investors who I know super well. And as a random side note, I know I'll probably get asked this a bunch, and it's incredibly flattering when people are like, yo, I'd love to invest in HyperChange. Like, how do I invest? Like, I just think that's amazing. And thank you. But I'm just like, I was super picky about who my investors were because they're people who like I've known for way before since I started this, who are like mentors to me, who I trust, and like I just am so like worried about taking other people's money and not paying them back, and it just scares me, and I don't want to like take on money that I couldn't pay back. And HyperChange is a very weird business because it's not like we could have a huge exit and sell it to like Bloomberg or Netflix or like I don't know like CNBC, because then I would still need to work. And so like it's not like we can sell it and then I can leave and then we can all get paid. Like I would have to continue working. So I just think when you have a creator focused business, like we're just sort of in new territory. And so that's why I'm like kind of always on the fence about like I don't really want to get investors. But anyway, the point is I raised money here, so I started spending money. Lost about 10 grand each quarter, try to keep a cushion in the bank, but this is what like sort of turbocharged growth, allowed me to invest in equipment, allowed me to, I'd burned through like a huge chunk of my savings. I had like 100 Tesla shares, then I had to sell half of them to 50 Tesla shares. I had 2 Bitcoin, I had to cash out of my Bitcoin. I've since like bought back my Tesla and Bitcoin, but like I basically was like, okay, I don't have any more money to spend. I need to raise a little bit of cash to pay myself. So in Q3 2018, and Q4 2018 is when I started like actually being able to pay myself a salary. Q1, tried to go profitable. Q2 and Q3, I was like, screw it. I'm going to raise even more money. I think total I've raised about $70,000 from the same investors. And so that's why I had losses investing in new equipment. Q3 and Q4, like absurd amounts of travel and equipment. So that's part of what I'm spending my money on, and like paying myself, paying my rent. That is the state of the business right now. Our loss was down to $7,000 on 29,000 revenue in Q4. Now I still have like a little bit of cash in the bank, but my goal is like, I want to make this like, I do not want to ever raise more money. Like I just want to take this all the way, make it a real profitable business, not rely on outside capital. So my plan right now is to, hopefully I'll be running this towards like break even, and I'll be able to just run it at break even and just continue investing in growth and new equipment with internal cash flow. So that's my goal from here on out. I think I'll be able to do it, but of course you never know. Net income, I didn't update that. Gross margin, like I was telling you, my gross margin is getting a little worse because I'm investing in more content, but I think it's totally worth it. Here's my operating expenses. I think they were inflated in Q3 and Q4 because I just bought so much new equipment and traveled so much, and I think they'll like normalize or stay flat while revenue continue to grow. That'll allow the business to come to break even or even be profitable. And yeah, so this is the HyperCharts of the business. Maybe it's helpful to do a quick annual check to see how I look at things. Following is about 83,000, up from about 37,000 in 2018, growing over 100%, actually accelerating growth in Q4. So that's really promising. I want to definitely grow my following at least 100% in 2020. Impressions, we went from, 453,000, 2.6 million to almost 7 million. I definitely want to get this up to like 15, once again, over 100% growth, 15, 20 million for 2020. These are just like my loose goals. Annual revenue segments, obviously Patreon has been huge. And then YouTube has been like exploding. So I'm hoping Patreon and YouTube continue to grow. And then for now, those will be my only 2 revenue sources. And we got the Clips channel starting to generate some YouTube revenue as well. So hopefully that'll help the growth in 2020. Then revenue and operating income, self-explanatory. Losses were much bigger in 2019. Revenue, this is like what I'm most proud of. 1,000 to 23,000 to 74,000. I'm hoping we can do like 150,000, and that'll bring us to break even in 2020. And then even though my losses grew, my operating margin actually improved from negative 83% in 2018 to negative 54% in 2019, and hopefully around 0% in 2020. It's definitely like a stretch goal, but I think I can do it. And so that is the goal. Anyway, so I think this is a really fascinating feature, and I'm going to leave this public for now, like I said, but I'm probably in the future, I'm going to close it off privately, but still keep it for my own internal analysis and giving to investors or advisors or people that I want feedback on the business of how to think about it. Like what I think is so cool about this product is it's like almost like a version of like your LinkedIn profile, but for your company's financials. Like I almost see a world where like every startup should have this super clear, simple, pictures of here's our slide deck, but like whatever, that is a bazillion numbers that you're trying to pitch the story. Let's just see what your HyperCharts looks like, super simplified. Like I think that's a really cool, powerful product that I plan on at least using for my startup. More broadly, I'm really curious to see what other kind of things people come up with for this, what they use it for. I know I showed you using KPIs, like my impressions and following. That isn't technically available yet, but it's coming very soon. But for now, I think it's just you're inputting your company financials. So anyway, a little bit of a different episode. You can go to hypercharts.co/private to learn more about this, or just go to hypercharts.co, start playing around with your favorite public companies and analyzing those. But yeah, I'm just really pumped. Huge shout out to Mo for working on all this, because I just think this is so needed in the financial system. I'm going to make it way easier to understand the language of business, accounting, numbers, financials, and just making that into pictures that are interactive and fun. I think it's just a big unlock for the educational piece of HyperChange. So I'm really pumped about that. Would love to know what you think in the comments below about this little business. Definitely a little bit rattled that I shared all my financials to the world and like we're losing money, maybe we're gonna grow me, but that is what it is. HyperChange is a scrappy startup. So huge shout out to the people on Patreon that are supporting, making all this possible, and to you watching on YouTube, because you're also a big chunk of the revenue, as you saw right there. Anyway, this is HyperChange. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.